Hey, it's Wendy from Worldwide Speak. Hope you're doing well. This video is going to focus on paraphrasing. I'm going to give you practice paraphrasing some simple sentences. We can go through them and I can show you how to do this. When you're learning English, you're going to need to know how to paraphrase, especially in an academic setting. By the end of this video, you're going to feel comfortable paraphrasing on your own in English. Let's learn. Okay, let's go over what paraphrasing is. When your teacher asks you to paraphrase, what does he or she mean? Paraphrasing means that you rewrite someone else's sentences or ideas using your own words. And typically when you're paraphrasing, the length of the sentence is about the same. Well, why do we paraphrase? One, the most important is to avoid plagiarism. You never, ever want to take somebody else's sentence or idea and make it your own, because that would be stealing or copying. Also, we paraphrase to show that we have read something or listened to something and we understand it completely, and then we can explain it back to somebody else using our own words or our own ideas. Lastly, paraphrasing is essential for academic writing and test taking. You will have to paraphrase all of the time if you're in a classroom setting and you have to do writing and reflect on what you've read or what you've heard. And you're also going to need to use this skill if you are taking some sort of standardized test or some sort of essay type test where, again, you have to read and you have to show what you have learned in your own words. Okay, so when you begin paraphrasing and continue paraphrasing, I'd like you to keep three things in mind. One, I'd like you to remember synonyms. Remember, these are words that have similar meanings. For example, eat and dine. Then I would like you to think about the order of words. I have here eat and sleep. We could switch that order, sleep and eat, and it would be different, but mean the same thing. This is obviously a very simple example, and a lot of times in paraphrasing, when I talk about order of words, or your teacher talks about order of words, we talk about actually phrases within the sentence that we rearrange so it has similar meaning, but it's not the same exact wording as the original author. And lastly, I'd like you to think about word forms. For example, eat and eating. Sometimes we can change the word forms in order to change the sentence a bit in order to make it our own sentence, our ideas, our words. Same idea as the sentence that we are paraphrasing, but we say it our own way. And so you can use these three things and they will help you paraphrase correctly. You use synonyms, you change the order of words, and you can also change word forms. Now it's time to practice. Let's try this together so you can get the hang of paraphrasing. And really, the more you practice, the better you will become. So let's take a look at this first sentence. It's pretty simple. Over 60% of college students today have jobs while attending school, earning about $700 a month. Now, I took this sentence and I paraphrased it, and let me show you what I did. So instead of using the word today, I used the word currently. That's a synonym. And I moved that word to the beginning of the sentence, so I changed the order of the words. And then I used the word more than 60%, which again is a synonym for over. I'm not using the same words as the original sentence, but I'm using synonyms that have the same meaning. And then instead of college, I used university. And then instead of earning, I used make around. They used earning about, I used make around. Same connotation. And then I used each instead of per. And lastly, that phrase while attending school, I used while they are going to school. Going to is the same as attending. And I underlined it to show you that I took that phrase and instead of it being in the middle of the sentence, I put it at the end of the sentence. So in my paraphrase, I used a lot of synonyms and I changed the order of the original sentence. So when I write my paraphrase, it sounds like this. Currently, more than 60% of university students have jobs that make around $700 each month while they are going to school. It's the same idea, but now I've said it in my own words, and now it's my sentence. It's a paraphrase from the original sentence. Sometimes you might get a sentence like this that's difficult to paraphrase because there aren't many synonyms you can use because you have a lot of proper nouns. What you can do in this situation is you can rely on that skill of changing the word order so that the sentence becomes a paraphrase and it's in your own words. So let's look at this original sentence. The 2012 Summer Olympics took place in London, England, with an opening ceremony directed by the famous British film director Danny Boyle. We have lots of proper nouns, the Summer Olympics, London, England, Danny Boyle. So we need to really rely on word order. Let's look at how I took the time to paraphrase this. Well, I started, you see how I underlined by the famous British film director, Danny Boyle. I took that and I put it at the beginning of the sentence. And I changed the order even of how it was said. I started with the name, Danny Boyle, and then I describe who he is, a famous British film director. And then I go on to state, directed the opening ceremony for the 2012 Summer Olympics in London, England. In the original sentence, it said the 2012 Summer Olympics took place in London, England. I changed that a bit and I just used the word in and I took out the words took place. So it's about the same length. It has all of the same information. It says essentially the same thing, but now it's a paraphrase because there's different word order and there are not the same words. Let's do another one together. This sentence reads, more and more people are choosing to eat a plant-based diet these days because it is better for their health. Let's paraphrase. Again, I underlined that phrase because they want to be healthier because it's now coming at the beginning of the sentence. As you can see in the original, it comes at the end because it is better for their health. So I've switched the word order or the phrasing. I've moved it around in the sentence. And then instead of using more and more, I use the word many as a synonym. And then I go on to use the word today instead of these days. And in the original sentence, it says are choosing. I decided to use the word decided. And in the present perfect. So today have decided. And lastly, instead of using the word eat, I use the synonym consume. So my paraphrase looks like this. Because they want to be healthier, many people today have decided to consume a plant-based diet. Same meaning, different order, different words, and it's a paraphrase. Let's do one more together. This sentence has a time sequence. One thing happens and then another thing happens. It's really important when you paraphrase to pay attention to when things are happening in the sentence to make certain that you keep that sensitive time order, and so you keep the meaning of the original sentence. So let me read it. After the door shut, the professor decided to hand out a pop quiz on the unit the students had been studying for the past month. So let's paraphrase. I took the phrase at the beginning of the sentence, after the door shut, and you can see I underlined it in my paraphrase. After the door closed, I changed the word shut to closed. I used a synonym, but I took that phrase and I put it at the end. And you can see how in the past few examples, we do that all of the time when we're paraphrasing. It's a very useful skill in paraphrasing, to move things from the beginning to the end or from the end to the beginning. And then let's take a look at the words I used and what synonyms I put in. So first, instead of using the word professor, I used teacher, a little bit different connotation, but the same meaning. Instead of decided, I used made a decision. And then instead of using to hand out, I used to give. And then for the word on the unit, I used over the unit. And then lastly, when the original sentence says the unit the students had been studying for the past month, I say the unit of the month. It has the same meaning. So when you read the paraphrase in its entirety, it sounds like this. The teacher made a decision to give a pop quiz to the students over the unit of the month after the door closed. You can see the order is still correct. The door closed and then the teacher gave the pop quiz. So I've been careful about making sure that those things happened in the correct sequence. And then I used a bunch of synonyms and I changed some of the word order around. Now it's time for you to try paraphrasing on your own. I've given you a sentence here. Some studies show that taking music lessons helps improve math and English test scores by more than 15%. I'd like you to try to paraphrase this on your own and then leave your paraphrase in the comments below, and I promise I will respond to each person who paraphrases it, and I'll let you know how you're doing. You did it. You are on your way to becoming a super paraphraser. This is an essential skill you're going to need when you're writing in English, especially in an academic setting. Keep learning with us here on YouTube. Please hit the like button if you like the content that we're providing. And as always, it really helps us if you subscribe to our channel because we can reach more people. For more English resources, you can visit our website at worldwidespeak.com. Thank you so much and have a great day.